Hello and welcome to Enchanted Nova Reads. I'm Nova, and today I will be reading Chapter 1 of Whatcha Wanna Do. This fic is rated M for mature and is available on AO3. Chapter 1, Bathroom Floor. Ochako Uraraka knew moving forward was the only option. It just so happened that it was easier said than done. Moving forward meant she couldn't go back home and eat a third gallon of strawberry ice cream. Her friends assured her going out and having a good time would make all the difference. Come out, have some drinks, dance with some hot men. That's what they told her, and she obliged. Besides, lying on the bathroom floor for 3 straight days wasn't good for anyone. Why exactly has she been laying on the bathroom floor for 3 days? Well, because of a boy. Yes, the great Aviator, fearless zero-gravity queen, had her heart broken by a stupid boy. The worst part, it had happened nearly 4 months ago, but 3 days ago would have been their 5th anniversary, and social media had been rather vicious, sharing all of these stories and pictures of her ex-beau in America teaming up with all these awesome heroes who sang all his praises. No, she wasn't being petty, but a small part of her hated seeing him smiling in every single picture as if she didn't matter in the slightest. Did their nearly 5-year-long relationship mean absolutely nothing? She reminded herself that media edited and cropped things all the time, but still, couldn't they have thrown her a fucking bone? Izuku Midoriya was living his best life. She had grieved their breakup, even going so far as skipping out of work for 2 straight weeks and returning home to stay with her family to find some peace. When that time passed, she returned back to their apartment. He'd been there. It was an awkward meeting, too. And in his annoying Midoriya way, he was nice and sweet and charming. That only made it harder. But unfortunately, there was no middle ground. "You're treating your career as if it's more important than mine," Ochako had said to him the night they broke up. "No, it's not like that, and you know it," he had replied, sounding almost believable. Maybe he was being honest, but his actions were much more clear. He had gotten a great offer to go to America. She wouldn't deny that, but that was the thing. It was an offer for him, not for her. Ochako had to stand her ground. "Going with you means giving up everything I worked for and accomplished." "You did it once, and you can do it again in America." Ochako couldn't believe him. It was a compliment in a way, but also a complete disregard of her feelings. Why should she have to start over? "You'll be amazing, Ochako, anywhere you go." The chasm between them had grown so large. He was Deku, All Might's protege, destined to be #1 hero in all of Japan and potentially even the world. And Ochako? Yeah, she was his girlfriend. That's how they referred to her in the tabloids. In the media. Deku's girlfriend. Couldn't even bother to acknowledge her name. She refused to live in that shadow. She refused to let go of everything she built, and she wouldn't leave her friends and family behind. It was too much. She couldn't do it. So she made the only choice she could. "I don't want to give you an ultimatum," she had said sadly, the tears burning her eyes. "So instead, let's just end things." "You want to break up?" "I'm staying here, Midoriya. My life is here, and I'm not going to just leave it behind." "So this is it?" "I guess so." He didn't say anything after that, and neither had she. They didn't share the news with anyone for a few days, but it became obvious after a while. And the rest was history. They were the hottest topic for a month straight, and Ochako hated it. Now she was sitting in a cab, staring out the window, debating if going out was the right thing. Was she ready for this? 5 years they had been together. That wasn't something you just move on from. Mina, Momo, and Sue had taken her shopping the other day and told her she had to go out dancing with them. To say she was reluctant was an understatement. Her bathroom floor didn't judge her, and neither did the strawberry ice cream. Her friends wouldn't judge her either. In fact, they had been nothing but kind and supportive for the past few months. She knew she was in good hands with them, but she wasn't ready to be hit on by men or have pictures of herself in the media. The cab stopped in front of Aviator, a club designed to look like an air hangar with matching aircraft themes. It was one of the newer clubs in the area, and it was always packed, typically surrounded by paparazzi too. The club was partially owned by the wing-heroed Hawks. Countless heroes came to the club to unwind and have a good time, and their adoring fans never stopped gushing. Ochako paid her cabbie and climbed out of the vehicle. The second she closed the door, he drove away. She gripped her wristlet and let out a deep breath, heading toward the main entrance. A line of about 20 or so people stood at the entrance. Majority of them were everyday people, most likely trying to hang out with the heroes. One thing UA High never taught their students was that they would be celebrities. It may have been a given, but Ochako still found it a bit unsettling. When she approached the bouncer at the front of the line, he glanced down at her. "I'm here for Kriati," Ochako said. The bouncer, tall and all muscles, nodded. He stepped aside, and Ochako smiled before making her way inside. The music blared over the speakers, practically rattling the entire building. Why would anyone find this appealing? Ochako couldn't even think. Lights strobed across the room at the stage where a DJ stood going all out. By no means was this the type of scene Ochako was accustomed to. Mina and Momo, however, they loved being around people and music and booze. She wandered towards the bar, but it was bursting at the seams with people surrounding it. Being liquored up probably wasn't the best thing, since she was alone. The sea of people all around her made her feel a little nauseous. The pumping music had the building shaking, but everyone seemed to want it to go even louder. Ochako squeezed past a few people and found an empty high top. She claimed the little space as her own and leaned against it before digging around in her small bag for her phone. She would send Mina and Momo a text. The odds of them hearing it, though, probably -100. She sent the message, telling them she arrived and was on the first floor by the bar. Hopefully they'd come and get her, or at least tell her where they were. If neither answered in 5 minutes, she'd try again. The dance floor was to her right, and people were pushed upon each other, bodies grinding and arms waving in the air. Ochako glanced up at the second floor. More crowds, more dancing people, more boozing people, and more unfamiliar faces painted in a neon glow. She looked at her phone. 1 minute had passed and she sent the message. Biting the inside of her cheek, Ochako glanced at the bar. Maybe one drink would loosen her up. Unfortunately, the bar was surrounded in a line 3 people deep. She scanned the room, hoping to find maybe another bar or cocktail waitress or someone she knew. After another minute of standing awkwardly by the high top, Ochako glanced at her phone. Nothing. She let out a small sigh. The reality sank in. Unlike Mina and Momo, Ochako wasn't one for the club or party scene. Those two were always at some sort of event. And Ochako had been to clubs and bars and various events too, but never as a single girl. She always had Midoriya. The thought made her feel even worse. She was an independent woman. Forget about Midoriya. She didn't need him to navigate these types of places. Summoning up all her bravery and desire to let loose, Ochako held her head high and turned to the bar. It was all about confidence. She was Uravity, the zero-gravity hero. That meant something. Someone joined her at the table. Male, 2 drinks in hand. Older, maybe in his early 30s. She didn't recognize him, but given his taut maroon blazer and his lanky frame, right-parted hair, and unbuttoned shirt, she assumed he was some sort of businessman. He placed the drinks on the table, smiled at her, and casually pushed one towards her. "It looks like you need a drink, so I took the liberty of bringing you one." She'd be polite. With a small smile, she said, "Thank you." He nodded. "Of course. I noticed that you were standing over here for a little while, all by yourself no less, which is a shame. No one as pretty as you should be all alone in a club." Clearly he was hitting on her, but she was getting the vibe it was more than just talking to a pretty girl and more of a let's hook up type of situation. Unfortunately for him, she had high standards, as all girls should. "So you want to head to the dance floor with me?" He nodded toward the pool of people. The pumping music had them grinding, arms up in the air, and swaying around like there was no tomorrow. Ochako clicked her tongue and let out a small laugh. Mostly nervous laughter, but she figured he wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And if he could, he probably didn't give a shit. He seemed like he'd been through a hell of a week and just wanted to blow off steam. She knew the feeling, but he still needed to tone down the creeper grin a bit. "I didn't spike the drink or anything." Ochako blinked and nodded stiffly. "Good. What's your name?" "I'm Soji." "Soji. Nice to meet you." Ochako feigned a smile, hoping she would navigate this with grace. "I appreciate the drink, and I know it takes a lot to strike up a conversation with a complete stranger. You have a gorgeous smile." He reached for her hand resting on the table. Ochako choked out a laugh and pulled her hand away. "Thanks, but try and listen. I've been watching you since you came in." "Creepy." "I'm a good guy, I swear, and that's why I couldn't ignore you standing here all by yourself. I just kept thinking, no way someone would stand her up." Ochako brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Thank you for the compliments. And drink, Soji. I'm not interested, though. Don't be shy. Let's go get something to eat. Be somewhere more quiet. The guy couldn't take a hint, could he? Soji, that wasn't me asking you to try harder. There's a great burger joint just down the road. I'll show you a good time. Unfortunately, as a hero, she had to maintain her composure and only use her words to direct the issue at hand. No, thank you. Are you afraid that I might be exactly what you need tonight? Ochako almost laughed. You're all alone. Let me keep you company. Someone put an arm around Ochako's shoulder. She stiffened and turned to her left. Red spiky hair, a big goofy smile, Kirishima Ajiro. Thank goodness. He eyed Soji, who took a step back. Who's your friend, babe? Sorry I'm late. Ochako owed Kirishima a couple of drinks for swooping in. She smiled at him, then turned her attention back to Soji, who was clearly disappointed and maybe a touch annoyed. This is Soji, and he was just leaving. Soji's face scrunched as though he had been stung by a jellyfish. Right. Nice to meet you. Once he disappeared into the crowd, Ochako let out a breath of relief. Kirishima chuckled and peeled his arm off her shoulders. Thanks for the help. I owe you one. Don't mention it. What are you doing here? I thought you were in Kyoto now. I am, Kirishima said. Bakugo and I are on a mission down here. We got some leave after finishing up. The dynamic duo is still together, huh? Kirishima laughed. Don't tell him I said this, but he basically begged me to join him down there. Ochako chuckled. My lips are sealed. Kirishima was the same guy he had been back in high school. Genuine, goofy, and charming. He was the guy you went to when you just wanted to feel a little bit better. He'd grown up nice, more muscular than Ochako recalled, definitely taller too, and there was a hint of a 5 o'clock shadow on his face. It's really good to see you again. How long has it been anyways? 2 years? Kirishima said, resting his arms on the table and casually leaning forward. Ochako nodded. Yeah, you look great. Kirishima stood a little straighter. Well, I work out a lot. Clearly. Ochako reached over and squeezed his bicep. Want to come with me? Me and the guys are upstairs shooting some pool. Kirishima nodded toward the stairwell on the far right wall of the club. I'm sure the girls will find you sooner or later. Ochako nodded. Sure, why not? Lead the way. They ascended the staircase to the second floor. Clusters of people were chatting with drinks in hand. Some were dancing around, and others were scoping out the scene. Lights flashed across the brick wall, and the music had the rail of the stairs vibrating. Ochako hoped that the billiard area would be a little quieter. So how is it in Kyoto? Ochako asked as she followed Kirishima down the walkway back toward the front of the club. It's pretty nice, actually. Kamui Woods is super relaxed, and having Bakugo as a partner keeps me on my toes. Has he changed at all? Oh, yes. He's very charming and doesn't yell nearly as much as he used to. Ochako's eyes widened. Are you serious? Kirishima laughed. I'm totally joking. No, Bakugo is still the rough around the edges, screaming at the top of his lungs asshole you've always known. I was a little worried there. So before he was 99.9% rage, but now it's more like 98%. Well, it wouldn't be Bakugo if he wasn't raging. Kirishima laughed, then opened the large glass door, waving Ochako through. It was much calmer in the upstairs lounge, and the music was muffled fairly well from the other side of the glass wall. A dozen pool tables were lined in 2 rows. Long pleather benches lined the outer area, and a couple of high tables divided the space. Bakugo chalked his cue stick and circled the table like a hungry shark ready to strike. He shook his head and stepped back, eyes darting from the cue ball to the 8-ball. Sero stood off to the side, a gleam in his eyes, holding a cue stick in hand. 5 balls remained on the table, 4 of which were striped. It appeared Sero believed that Bakugo wouldn't be able to take the shot. Not a bad assumption to make, given the 8-ball was against the side a little away from the corner pocket, and 2 striped balls were blocking a direct shot. You can admit defeat, Sero said. Shut up, tape arms! Bakugo snarled without so much as glancing at Sero. I can make the shot. Then by all means. Ochako had to see it. He would have to get the cue ball to go around the 2 striped ones. It wouldn't be easy, and part of her believed he was bluffing. Bakugo climbed on the edge of the pool table, resting his leg on the edge while the other remained on the ground. He held the cue stick straight up, eyes fixed on the white ball. He licked his lips and moved the cue stick as if deciding where to strike. He's gonna get it. Kirishima whispered to Ochako. She smiled at him, then turned her attention back to Bakugo. It'll be impressive if he does. The pop of the cue hitting the ball echoed in the room, and it was like Bakugo had another quirk or something, because the ball made a curved path and bumped the 8-ball where it sank into the corner pocket. Sero's mouth fell open while everyone else laughed and clapped. Fuck me. Ochako laughed lightly and clapped while Kirishima cheered and ran over to Bakugo, slinging his arm over the broody blonde's shoulder. Drinks are on tape, arms. Bottoms up. Bakugo shrugged out of Kirishima's hold, grabbed a shot glass off the table, and downed the liquid. He slammed the glass back down and smirked at Sero, who let his head fall between his shoulders. Next time, don't act like you're tough shit. Bakugo was certainly the same person he had always been. In the corner of her eye, Sero fell onto a bench and covered his face with his hands. Kirishima walked over to the tape hero and clapped a hand on his shoulders, giving him a little pep talk. Her eyes flicked back to Bakugo, who was talking to a waitress with a high ponytail. She was smiling and nodding as Bakugo gestured over to Sero. He probably ordered another round of drinks on Sero's tab. It had been a long time since Ochako had seen Bakugo. In fact, she hadn't seen him personally or spoken with him since they all graduated from UA. He left and never looked back. All things considered, even though it had been 5, almost 6 years, he hadn't really changed at all. Something about that was nice too. The familiarity of him just made her feel a little happy. Sure, he was rough around the edges, but they were friends. Sort of. They had some good conversations back in high school, and they did train together multiple times. When she started dating Midoriya, though, shortly after they graduated, Bakugo stopped coming around. Hey, Pink Cheeks, could you not stand in the doorway? Bakugo's gruff voice pulled her from her memories. Move. Ochako's brows furrowed, and her lips pressed together in a tight line. Geez, you haven't changed. You could say please. Please fucking move. Bakugo crossed his arms, biceps bulging under his black t-shirt. Ochako rolled her eyes and stepped aside. He walked on without a second glance or word. She shook her head. You're welcome. I didn't say thank you. He shot back without missing a beat. Before Ochako could even come up with something to say, he was already out the door. Ugh, the nerve of that guy. Hey, Uraraka. Kirishima held up a cue stick. Want to play? Yeah, I'd like that. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please head down to the description box to click on the link that'll take you to AO3, where you can leave a comment and kudos. Until next time, this is Enchanted Nova, signing off.